All right, welcome to another installment of GroundWorks Dance Theater's Virtual Artist Talks. I'm Steve Sucato, marketing and community can't communicate communications manager. Today, I'm talking with GroundWorks creative artist, um, uh, guest choreographer, Spenser Theberge. So, welcome, Spencer.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, so you're originally from Portland, Oregon, and you received early training at School of Oregon Ballet Theater, Columbia Dance, and the Vancouver School of the Arts and Academics, which I found out from you is not actually in Vancouver, Canada, but in Vancouver, Washington.
That's right.
So, what got you interested in dance in the first place, and at what age?
Yeah, actually, I was quite young. I was watching the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, and the gymnasts were doing their thing. I was so infatuated with their dancing and the athleticism and the flipping, and I was trying all of those moves at home, and I think I really freaked my parents out, and they uh, were worried, that I would hurt myself flipping around at home and all of that. So my mom found a local gymnastics center and enrolled me there. And at that gym, we were required to take ballet as part of our training. Um, so that was my first time in any kind of formalized dance training was something that was a requirement, and I sort of felt naturally. I understood it. My body kind of got the coordination and the ideas intuitively, and I loved it right away. I was 8 when I first had a dance class, and slowly gymnastics it started to hurt more as it got more intense. Was more Yeah, it was just more painful, and in that typical track of men's gymnastics, you don't do as much of the artistic side of things. You don't get to perform dance really at all, and not to music and things like that. And those were elements I felt like I was missing. So I just said I was ready to switch and stop doing gymnastics and focus on dance. That's when I found School of Oregon Ballet Theater, which then led me to Columbia Dance and Vancouver School of Arts and Academics later.
Okay. All right. You mentioned that you have at least were was she or any other siblings or family members involved? Sort of led things for you in the arts, or did they, or anybody not be?
No, yeah, I love that thought. I have a sister, and I have a stepsister and a stepbrother as well. I'm the youngest, and um, I definitely learned through their example. Watching them get older and growing up was so influential on me in all the ways, like behavior, personality. Yeah, all of those things are so influential to see your older siblings start to embody first. And um, I would say all of my siblings, and my mom and my dad and my stepdad as well, everybody is very creative, in some field, or some they have an outlet that involves something to do with making, or aesthetics, or almost performance in a way, in the different ways that you can think of performance or production. So none of them are in arts as their profession now, but definitely everybody has a kind of creative inclination for sure.
Okay. All right. In 2000, Princess Grace Award, ballet scholarship. Was that to study any place? Just what was that?
How did that come about?
Yeah, or what? Yeah, what was it used for? I guess. Or I didn't know if it being a
Yeah.
scholarship, yeah, if you had to go a certain
Mm,
place.
so that the Princess Grace Award, I was awarded between my junior and senior year at the Juilliard School,
Okay.
and that the the scholarship that came with that award was applied to my tuition at Juilliard for my last year of school, which was incredibly helpful. I was always writing grants and scholarships on my own to help subsidize my education. So I was really proactive about that. And something fortunate about that Princess Grace Award was I ended up having I had a bit of a surplus of scholarship after all of the additional scholarships I had applied for came through. So that also that money helped me go to Europe to audition for dance companies and helped me get a job essentially because it's expensive to travel to auditions and it's expensive to go to school and all those things really add up. So that was a really I'm very grateful for that aid at that particular moment in time. It felt like it helped make a lot of things I wasn't sure of feel possible.
Okay. That's good. You through school there.
Hmm.
So, as you mentioned, you obviously graduated from Juilliard, and then you danced professionally with some bigger European company there, and William Forsythe's company. How did those experiences and others that you guest started artist with, such as Crystal Pite's Kid Pivot, uh, inform your approach to dance making?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for that question, Steve. I feel hugely informed by those experiences, and I also really believe that when you start creating yourself, that essentially you are passing on bits of history that you've accumulated. Um, I struggle sometimes with that feeling of the idea of being new or being yeah, this idea of originality because I feel so um, so informed by these people who really changed my life artistically. So I feel their presence in my own creations now, kind of as an like trying to figure out a way to honor them and what I've learned from these choreographers I've worked with in the past. So um, I'm taking kind of a roundabout way to get to your question, but to your point, yeah, I feel like at Netherlands Dance Theater, for example, I learned so much about style and an aesthetic kind of value in dance that I was embodying day in and day out for 4 years, and it sort of imprinted on my bones and my muscles and became part of the way that I move. And so when I started choreographing, I felt like I was. I mean, I had been choreographing prior to that, but after Netherlands Dance Theater, I could feel how I was changed by the things I was practicing, the modalities I was practicing in. Yeah, they had imprinted on my body. Um, and then going to the Forsyth company was a radical shift for me because Forsyth, especially at that time, was primarily we were improvising in all of the performances, and I learned so much about how to treat improvisation like choreography and how to structure it in such a way that the performance always got from point A to point B. It wasn't that anything could happen in improvisation. It was always going to take you to your ultimate destination, but that was part of the craft, was that it was so designed and so clear that even while improvising, it felt like choreography. So I really fell in love with that approach to dancing, to using improvisation as a means to create. It felt so alive to me and so immediate, so present, that since then it's been a huge part of my creative practice. It's a huge part of how I choreograph, and while it's not always what the dancers are doing in the works that I make, improvisation is always a part of how we get there in the end.
Okay. So do you have sort of a go-to approach in your process of creating works? If so, what does that entail? And I guess if not, where do you look to start?
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's important for me to be in the room with the people that I'm going to be making with first. I always have a few ideas about theme, or maybe some imagery in mind, or some pieces of inspiration, like from text or from film, but I never plan the dance before I start making it. And that's because I want the piece to become the piece it becomes because of the people who are in the room. Um, and I say that out loud right now as like a reminder to myself, because sometimes that's hard, and can be, I mean, scary is maybe too dramatic of a word, but with time pressures, sometimes that isn't easy. Sometimes you feel like you want to just predict and plan ahead, but ultimately that's not what I'm interested in as a choreographer. I am interested in how humans relate to one another, and how that can be portrayed through movement. So then I feel like in order to do that, I have to meet the humans who will be responsible um, for demonstrating those kinds of relationships. I can't assume or predict who they are, and who they are to each other. Those things I have to find out in real time. So I guess, yeah, my go-to approach is meet the people, have a conversation, learn something about each other, and then start to notice themes and ideas that feel shared between us, and then start to create from there.
Okay. All right. Well, I've always been curious, and I think many other people are, as to what you tell the dancers, how much or how little of what you're thinking in the creative process to generate the type of movement that you want, or feelings or mood or whatever. So how does Spenser work in
Sure.
that way?
Um, well, I guess it almost is a continuation of what I was just speaking about, in terms of I'm interested in them as people and as dancers. I'm interested in their intuitions and their interests. So there's a lot of collaboration involved there. I I rarely ask people to move like me. I'm not interested in people becoming a version of me as a dancer. I'm interested in us sharing values, but ultimately I want the dancers to interpret those values through their point of view. So I ask a lot of questions of them. I ask them, what things are feeling like to them. I ask about what their intuitions are, what feels organic, what their instincts are in movement or in transitions and things like that. And then I try to filter that through my perspective, and then find common ground there. I rarely ever have an idea that can only be achieved one way. Usually, there are a lot of different ways that my um, my choreography can be achieved. So, trying to find the thing that feels like it most like the dancers identify with most is what I'm interested in.
Okay. All right. Right. So are you generating the movement sort of together, or maybe asking them to create things and then seeing what they come up with, or do you demonstrate everything?
Yeah, a little bit of a combo pack of all of that. With this creation at GroundWorks in particular, we started at the beginning of the creation, we started with some improvisation tasks, and then I used those to create a few phrases of material, phrases of choreography. Um, if I remember right, I think we had four or five kind of central vocabulary phrases. And I choreographed those. I taught those to the dancers, demonstrated those things as a way for us to practice embodying material and dance values and aesthetic and approach. And then I asked them to use that material to create different versions of their own ideas based on those phrases. So we started to I gave them a little bit of me and they gave me a little bit of them, and then it kind of went back and forth like this until what you see in the end is kind of our group think, sort of. It's the where we got to by continuing to trade our perspectives back and forth.
Okay. So in your bio on your website, you describe yourself as a multi-hyphenate performer and creator working across fields, choreography, dance, movement direction, text, and a bunch of others.
Mhm.
So are you looking to add any more to that list as far as fields of interest, or are there some things that maybe you don't purposely want to delve into, like maybe music creation or something?
Yeah, actually, I don't know. I feel like something that I notice as I continue to make things is I feel like a little bit allergic to the idea of having to stick inside any kind of boundaries or walls. This was a huge shift for me at the Forsyth Company, where I was asked to not perform as just a dancer anymore, but to perform as me. So I grew up at the Vancouver School of Arts and Academics, training also in theater, and I always thought that was a separate life, a separate world. And at the Forsyth Company, I was always asked to incorporate my literal voice, to speak in the works we were performing, to sometimes sing. There were people playing instruments, dancers playing instruments in the works. It was the company was called a dance company, but it was very hard to pin it to just dance. It wasn't just dance. But I think it was an example of all the things dance can be. Dance can include all of these other fields and perspectives and art forms, because the people who do the dancing contain all those things themselves. I used to think that those things weren't welcome. My other interests weren't welcome as a dancer, that dance was dance. And now I understand that differently. And when I'm creating, I feel like, well, what can I use to best communicate what I'm trying to communicate? And sometimes that answer is to move my body, and sometimes it's to speak words, or sometimes that feels best answered in the costume design, or I will write a lot for the things that I create too, because that feels like another avenue for creating. Um, I'm not actively trying, I'm not going back to school for any other training in any other field or anything like that, but I definitely don't feel like I'm trying to close doors or say no to other forms of inspiration or forms of creativity, because I feel interested as a person, so I don't want to stop being interested as a creator, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right. So, what drives you as a choreographer, and is that the same thing that drives you as a person?
I think, yeah, I think it's I think those things are the same for me. I think that choreographically, I make work to try to understand um, human experience better. So looking at opportunities to reflect on relationships and dynamics and human exchange through creating, and I feel like that's something that interests me as a person as well. I think similarly to the answer to the last question, I don't feel like when I'm choreographing, I'm not the person I am anymore. I feel like I'm trying to more and more as I get older to be me in every situation, to not say these aspects of myself are invited to this thing I'm doing, but not these aspects. To just try to keep integrating my sense of self into my experiences, into how I share with other people, because ultimately that's how I want the people I'm sharing with to feel as well, that they're invited as their whole selves. Um, so if I treat myself like that, hopefully that's an invitation for others, and if that's an expectation for others, hopefully then that's an expectation for me too.
Okay. All right. So, in addition to being a performer and a choreographer, you're also a dance educator. Via classes on your website, which is spensertheberge.com, and then also you freelance. You can tell me a little bit more in terms of what that, I guess, what motivates you about teaching or satisfies you about teaching.
Sure. I come from a family of teachers, actually, to kind of call back on that, one of those early questions of yours. So teaching, I feel like, is in the blood, and but besides that, it feels similarly like a great opportunity to get to pay forward the experiences that I've been fortunate to have. I think that the worst thing I could do with the knowledge I've gained is hoard it for myself, and I don't want that for my mentors, the people who have helped shape my being. I wouldn't want to keep their teachings with me. I want to keep passing those on. And I love that feeling of getting to spend time with my mentors when I'm teaching. I think, oh, how would they approach this? Or what would their language be? Or um, how would they use transitions here? I feel like I get to constantly kind of interrogate, and I use that word positively, like interrogate my experience with them and keep sort of mining it and keep getting the gems um, out of their teaching. So I want to pass on what I've learned from them, but I also find that it helps me figure out what I really care about. I start to notice, oh, I always ask for this or talk about this kind of thoughtfulness around transitions or thoughtfulness around musicality, coordination, and you start to realize over time, well, if I'm repeating that every time I'm teaching, I must believe it. I must really be interested in that, and I feel like I've gotten to know more about my own values, um, my own dance values, more through teaching maybe than any other way of relating to dance, more than performing and more than creating. I think the teaching has been most instructive that way.
Okay. So do you think you've developed sort of a Spenser methodology to your dance instruction?
Um, no, I mean, I feel like yeah, I feel like I'm a collection of the people who've inspired me. I do that as me, so yeah, I think there are Spencer isms in there for sure. But I think, yeah, part of the fun is sort of putting the puzzle together for yourself of the inspirations that felt impactful, and a little from here, a little from there, and then that becomes your version of it. Sure, but it's not. I feel very, very aware and very conscious of the fact that anything that I'm passing on, I didn't invent it. I'm interpreting it maybe, but it's information that doesn't belong to me or to the people I learned it from. That lineage is much bigger than all of us, so we just have to keep passing it on.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about the work that you're creating with GroundWorks dancers.
Mm-hmm.
So this is your third week of working with them. How would you describe the experience working with them as dancers, and are they being open to what you want, and I guess capable in the creative process? How would you characterize your time with them?
Yeah, I've had a great time with the dancers. This is my third week, but I've had quite a few months in between the first 2 weeks and then coming back now. So I started the creation in February. We worked for 2 weeks, and now it's June, and we're working for 1 week. So there's been a lot of time in between. And the first thing, and I've told the dancers this all week as well, that coming back to it, they're better than when we left it. More nuanced, richer in the details, more embodied. It's such a pleasure to have spent so much time away and come back to it and see that they've advanced their own in their own process with the work. So this week we've just really got to spend our time on finishing, which is of course very important, needing to complete the work. But what I feel like we get to do is complete it um, to the best of our ability, because they've taken such great care. We don't have to go back and retrace or remember. We really get to spend our time advancing, and that is it's a true pleasure. It's a true pleasure, and it really speaks to how they take care of their role in creating. It's multi-sided, right? I I offer and they interpret. So if somebody isn't doing their role in that, then things get more challenging. But when everyone is participating in what their role in creation is, then it really just works. And that's been the time with them so far. A couple days left to really deliver it to the best place we can get it, and I feel really confident that we'll leave it somewhere really lovely. Very happy.
Okay, great. All right, so this is what I found maybe the most difficult question to ask of a choreographer. Do you
Mhm.
have a title for your work?
Absolutely not. I it's all no, you're right. That's such a hard question, and it's the last thing for me every time I make something, and it's the thing I agonize over most. But I do have a really great. We've been taking so many notes along the way. I have a great collection of words, and then I usually start to just kind of collage a little and start to see what feels like it describes the piece. But some people, I know some choreographers who start with a title and that helps them create. I have to know what it is before I name it. That's the way it works for me. Um, so yeah, ideally by the end of the week, I'll be clearer on the
Okay.
title.
All right. Do you have sort of an idea of maybe how long it's going to be?
Yeah, it looks like it'll be right around the 20-minute mark. There's maybe a little bit more. It can swell a bit in timing because of a few of the improvised moments that happen in the piece. That time can either swell or contract a little bit depending on the choices that they're making in the moment. But yeah, it'll be at least 20, but not much longer than that.
Okay. All right. And maybe you can share a little about sort of your motivation, direction, or inspiration for this piece
Mm.
without giving too much away.
No, no, that's great. Also great to get to revisit that as we're getting to the end of the process to kind of remember where it came from. Um, the very first day of rehearsal, the dancers and David and I, we were having conversations around thoughts about really about memory, about our relationship with memory, both in terms of our history as people, but also the memory that exists in our bodies, memories of dances, memories of classes we've taken, and then memories that involve other people, and memories that we feel a little bit vague in our recollection of just identifying all the different states of memory and um, what that can translate as in the body. And from there, I feel like I've kept that really close, also in like the structure of the work to leave room for this idea of doubt in our recollection. Is this how it went? Am I remembering this right? Were you there? Was I here? And what happens when you decide to be sure of your memory or to be unsure of your memory? Um, yeah, there's a lot of qualities sort of texturally that emerged from that conversation that maybe didn't literally make it into the work, but definitely informed the work and continues to inform how the dancers are relating to each other. We spoke a lot about the value of process and to try to be in process while you are performing, to resist the urge to go into product mode or to any kind of feeling of completion or being done, to try to relate to the piece as if it's still alive and still changeable. um, and those influences are in the work as well.
Okay. So, talk about the music you're using for this.
Yeah, so I'm using two classical pieces of music. One is from Beethoven, a work from Beethoven, and just making sure I get the title right because it's a very long title. It's 32 piano variations in C minor on uh, on an original theme. That's the whole title, and it's a piece of that music. And then the Bach piece is from the Well-Tempered Clavier. So those are two pretty yeah, classique uh, pieces of music, and purposefully purposefully used as a way to first allow the audience to feel some familiarity, a feeling of, oh yeah, dancers dancing to classical music, I know this, but the way that that plays out through the piece without giving too much away is we're trying to subvert that relationship and play with those expectations. So while there's some comfort in the familiarity of that classical sound, we try to create a little bit of conflict with how the dancers relate to that. But you'll just have to come and see the work to understand more about what I'm saying, because I'm going to keep it coded like that. I don't want to give away all of the secrets and tricks and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly looking forward to it, and I'm sure all of GroundWorks followers are going to be as well. So, are there any sort of multimedia or unusual props or costuming involved with this? Or
Actually, in a bit of a twist for me, this one is pretty. There aren't other. There aren't really other mediums used in this. It's mostly it mostly consists of them as dancers, and the goal was that you would feel them performing as themselves, as if you were watching them rehearsing in the studio. So costuming them as they would dress themselves. Nothing is otherworldly or fantastical about this piece. It really feels immediate, like something happening in the room. It's happening at the moment. It's happening with those people, and they're essentially having a moment of privacy in public. They are allowing us into their process as a group together. So in that sense, it's pretty neutral production wise, but I think we'll feel in the stage context like there are some nice little wedges of surprise in there.
okay, all right. The last question I have for you is: have you been? Well, it's two questions, but have you been to Cleveland before this residency?
No, I haven't. February was my first time in Cleveland.
So what do your thoughts on the city? I don't know if you got to see much, but
I have, yeah. Well, I'm lucky too because I was here in the winter, which wasn't very wintry, honestly, when I was here, and then now getting to be here uh, in June with the sunshine and everything. I feel like you meet the city in a different way. The dancers and David have been so great about sharing recommendations with me, places to get coffee and have food, and I've learned a lot about theater here, staying in at the Playhouse Square, understanding what a big role theater plays in the city is really really exciting, and getting to have a bit of a relationship with CSU and their dance program, just feeling like even in 3 weeks, which is a short amount of time in the end, really getting a sense of the community and how people are living here, and it's been really nice. I've really enjoyed my time.
well, good, good. You could be an ambassador for Cleveland when you talk to other
Right?
folks and say it wasn't too bad.
No, not at all.
Okay, so for everyone else, you can experience Spenser's new work as part of GroundWorks Dance Theater's Summer Performance Series 2023, along with GroundWorks founding artistic director David, and a reprise of GroundWorks Antonio Brown's Floating Walls. And those dates in Cleveland are July 15 or 14, 15, and 16 at Kane Park. And those tickets are $25 and $30 a day of the show. And you can go to Akron and see the production there as well, August 4th and 5th, as part of the Heinz Pole Summer Dance Festival at Firestone Park, and that's free. And to find out more information on ticketing and the rest of it, you look at the bottom of our screen here, go to groundworksdance.org/summer2023. And I thank Spenser for taking part in this and being here. And we know the work's going to be great. And I'm glad you had a good time while you were here in Cleveland and working with GroundWorks.
Yeah, thank you so much.